Hey, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Mark Maybank, co-founder, managing partner of Maverix. We're a Toronto-based private equity group, and we've got a $500 million growth fund that invests across North America in technology and technology-enabled businesses. One of the recent deals we did, we co-led a $300 million transaction for Miovision, Kurtis's company. It gives me great pleasure to be here. And we're going to talk through some interesting strategies of whether to own or to rent.
That's good. Kurtis McBride, CEO, one of the co-founders of Miovision. I guess for those of you that don't know what we do, if you've ever watched The Italian Job and seen all the lights turn green, that's what we're trying to do, but in a safer way. Trying to make everyone's drive to work a little bit faster. We're about 420 people now, headquartered in Kitchener, but have offices in the US and in Europe.
And Kurtis, just to give everyone an indication, how many intersections is your technology active in across North America?
So we come in different flavors, but I would say we're probably in approaching 20,000 intersections now across North America. And then we also have products that are used to do portable traffic counts, and I bet you we've counted more than half of the intersections in North America.
Wow. So what makes this really fascinating is that the intersection is right at the cornerstone of the connected car, autonomous driving, the smart cities, and kind of the whole future of transportation. So if you take a picture of the whole market in the next 10 years and how our lives will evolve, a surprising amount involves transportation and how we get around. And the infrastructure side of transportation is Kurtis's bailiwick. So now the real question is, how does Kurtis conquer this marketplace? How does he become the one standard, the one ring to rule them all? And so one of the things we like most about this is a standards-driven market, which if you own the standard, you are the market, and that allows tremendous profitability. So Kurtis is strategically mapping how to kind of conquer North America and beyond. And he's got to do it through a couple really simple strategies, right? He's got to decide whether he's going to buy something, whether he's going to own it, or whether he's going to rent it. And it's not that dissimilar from a house. When you want to be in a house and you want to own it, you can either build a new house or you can buy an existing house, and or you can rent. And in the rent, I call that partnerships. It's a partnering. It's a little bit more transitory. So Kurtis, as he architects his business and a strategy, has to consider whether to buy, to build, or to rent. And kind of there's four major axes. The first one is time to market. How fast can you get into the market, beat your competition? Second thing is kind of strategic considerations. Can you take out a competitor? Do you get unique product? The third thing is how much resources, what does it cost? And the fourth thing is what's the risk? So one of the things we're going to talk about is Kurtis has just successfully acquired a very large player, an adjacent player in the market, a company called GTT. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, Kurtis, and how does that fit into your ambitions to own, to have the ring?
Own the intersection. So we've all driven through intersections. You don't really think about it, like turn red, yellow, green, or if you're in Toronto, mostly red. Hopefully there's not one from the city here. But the reality is there's actually a lot of different things that go on inside of an intersection. Most of you probably have smartphones, and depending on your age, you may have only ever had a smartphone, but before you had a smartphone, you would buy a Motorola flip phone, you'd buy a Garmin GPS unit, a calculator, a flashlight, maybe a portable DVD player, and there was just sort of this one-to-one relationship between the function you wanted to perform and a device, right? And then the smartphone came along, made it so that really just with software changes, you could do all of those different functions on a common piece of hardware. So in today's world, the intersection is very much in the pre-smartphone era. So every new function that you want to add to an intersection, you want to add communications to be able to understand what's happening at the intersection, or you want to add a sensor to be able to measure traffic flow to create a safer, more efficient intersection. Or as we'll get into with GTT, let's say you want to be able to make the lights turn green for a fire truck as it's going through the network. Traditionally, each of these functions was a different piece of hardware that you had to add to the intersection. So our product is essentially a smartphone for the intersection. It's a common piece of hardware that through software upgrades, you can add more functionality to over time, right? So it's one truck roll instead of half a dozen truck rolls, and it's a much lower cost of acquisition to get in there. So in the build, buy, partner sense, We started out by building a common device, right? So building essentially the smartphone that can go into an intersection, and we built a first application, right? So imagine a smartphone that initially could only make phone calls. This allowed us to start to sell devices into the network, but always with this idea that we wanted to be able to do a number of other, there's 9 total applications that we want to be able to run on this common piece of hardware. So as we started to build up this network, we wanted to add new functionality to the intersection network. And we started out with going out and doing a series of partnerships. One of the partnerships that we did was with a company called GTT, a company we ultimately acquired. They were at the time actually larger than we were, and we basically said, hey, you guys are in the business of trying to get fire trucks, ambulances, police cars through the network safer and faster by giving them green lights. Traditionally, you've shipped this piece of hardware that was like single purpose, right? It would listen for a signal, it would actuate the light would turn green. And we said, why don't we enable this so that through a software application that runs on our device, you guys can go to market. That way, if you want to ship on top of the devices we've already sold, or you want to have a differentiated reason for a customer to install because it can do other things, that's what this partnership's all about. So partnered.
So let me pause right there. I just want to break apart that partnership. There were 2 distinct components. One was on the product side. They had a product partnership, and then they also had a distribution partnership. And if you kind of break most businesses down, there's usually a product, a box of cereal, and then there's usually, distribution, a shelf in a grocery store. And so in this particular instance, this partnership was both at the product level and at the distribution level.
No, it's a great point. And it actually is a good segue actually into why we ultimately ended up acquiring them. What we found was, so they were the distribution, right? We provided this product piece, they added their product piece, but in this instance, they were the ones that were sort of on the front line selling this particular application. Their channels were very used to selling, in the smartphone analogy, they were very used to selling calculators. They didn't really know how to sell smartphones. So what we were finding was, while we did do a number of deals with them, their bias was still to selling calculators as opposed to going out there and trying to make a market for smartphones. And so we looked at this and we said, okay, like if the goal here is to use this, it's called emergency vehicle preemption, but if the goal here is to use these budgets and this channel to really accelerate the number of intersections that we can add to our network, this partnership is not going as fast as we really want it to go. And one thing led to another. This company came up for sale. There was a public company that was looking to sort of divest this one sort of divisional asset they had, and we went out and acquired it. And now we have, through that acquisition and a number of other ones, we have 8 of the 9 applications that we've set out to run on our intersection device. And we're now, by early next year, all new intersections that get shipped as GDT will basically come with this smartphone intersection.
So just to recap, what I heard was you had a partnership at the product and the distribution level, then opportunistically this company came up for sale, and then you proceeded to buy it in a competitive process.
Yep.
Which brought both product and distribution capabilities, some of which aligned really neatly, like on the product, and some on the distribution where you had calculators and smartphones in the same channel. Can you talk about some of the integration challenges first at the product side? How do you integrate a product? What were the considerations? I think everyone would love to know about that complexity.
Yep.
And then we'll turn our sights to the distribution side, which product is kind of technologies fitting together, and that's, code and hardware. Distribution is different because it's usually people fitting together. And as we all know, people are more complicated than phones.
Yeah. So I would say in both the product and distribution integration, there's sort of 2 stages that I'm finding. So when you buy a company like this, there's a strategic synergy. Notionally 1 + 1 is going to equal 3, right? When you get through the integration. But it tends to happen in sort of 2 waves. So the initial stitching together is really focused around, in the product case, for example, just making the 2 products talk to each other, not necessarily in the sort of full end game vision state that you want them to get to, but you can now start to sell alongside. But you're really selling alongside in the way that you could have partnered together in the market. So at this point, like 1 + 1 = 2. And then you go through the longer, sort of harder road of actually stitching together the products, right? So we're taking a business, 53-year-old business, they've sold 95,000 intersections, all very hardware dominated kind of product go to market. We're moving that into a software paradigm where it's going to be an application running on a box. And this just takes time, both to implement, but also to take an organization through the change management, right? Like, this is a fundamentally different way to think about getting their product out into the world. So there's a lot of sort of human emotions that go along with that, that we're sort of working through, but ultimately that gets you to the 1 + 1 = 3.
All right. One question, I always like to ask this because Kurtis's company they spent $110 million US on this acquisition. So Kurtis founded this company out of university. It's his first and only job. He's doing so well at it. What was it like to write a check or to approve a wire for $110 million US? Like, that's a lot of money. What was it like?
I mean, I flipped pancakes before I got this job. So
okay. Second job.
No, I mean, we raised $300 million to buy this company, and then, as you say, wired them $110 million US. As I remind my leadership team all the time, we made 300 million promises. We got to go and deliver on them. But yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that whole story, and the gentleman's retired now, but I found him on LinkedIn and sent him a note. This guy named Doug Roberts. They had actually 12 years prior had flown up to Kitchener. Under a previous ownership group, this company had actually made overtures to try to acquire Miovision. At the time, they said, no, not interested, thank you very much. So I sent Doug a note and just said, you had the right strategy, but the wrong acquirer.
Yeah. So when you write the big checks, you feel a lot of pressure because you've got to execute and you've got to integrate that product. You've got to integrate the distribution. And you chose to buy this. Now, if you had to build this, how long would it have taken you to get your product into 90,000 intersections and to be able to, do the Italian job, green light for all of those safety vehicles out on the road, fire, police, ambulance?
I think it's a great question, and I think that's actually the important distinction between product and channel, right? So how long would it take to build the product? We could have done that. It may have taken a year to kind of get to the point where we could have integrated the functionality they had into what we did. But to rebuild their 20 distribution partners across North America, 95,000 intersection deployments, literally 1,500 public agency customers across US, took them 53 years to build that business, right? So maybe we could have done it in half the time, but it still would have taken a long time. And we effectively not only bought a company when we bought GPT, but we effectively bought a market around emergency vehicle preemption.
Yeah, so if we go back to to use the Lord of the Rings and the one ring to rule them all and chasing the standards, there's about 425,000 signalized intersections, traffic lights across North America. Kurtis's business had 20,000 of them. They acquired another 90. That gives them 110,000. Over 25% market share, and almost everyone else is like 1% or less. And so if we're chasing standards and we're trying to have the one ring to rule them all, if you've got more intersections, you've got more ability to drive standards, you've got more ability to drive long-term profitability and value creation. So hopefully everyone sees this as a case study of how Kurtis was able to acquire an adjacent company that gives him a really strong footprint in the marketplace, converting a partnership so he knew exactly what he was buying, all the strengths and weaknesses of product and distribution, flipping it into an acquisition to allow him to try to grab that one ring. So hopefully you're on your way to becoming the default standard in North America, and hopefully we can all get home faster because of that. Thank you.